Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the Empathy at the Table podcast, and I'm your host, Tony Anagor. Today, we're joined by Zsuzsanna Ferenczi, a very good friend of mine, a growth partner and mentor specialist with over 2 decades of leadership experience in the dynamic tech sector. She's managed teams across Europe, and now she collaborates with companies to construct sustainable, profitable teams, emphasizing purpose-driven and profitable growth. Zsuzsanna's approachable style, paired with her ability to slice through the corporate jargon, renders her a formidable mentor and coach. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Zsuzsanna Ferenczi to the table. And hello. Hi, Zsuzsanna.
Hi, Tony.
Hello. Thank you for joining us on this podcast, Empathy at the Table. How's your day going so far?
Very good, thank you. I had a nice Friday, starting with a beautiful morning session with some great people. So I was off to a good start.
Super. Well, Zsuzsanna, why don't we just start by kicking off and maybe just telling the listeners a little bit about who you are and what your area of expertise is.
Sure. Actually, when I look at my LinkedIn profile, whereby most of the people identify themselves, or at least try to label themselves, you may think that, okay, who is she really? Because it says she's a growth mentor, she's a facilitator, she is a co-author. So what's linking all of these different elements together? And I think what links all of these elements together, that in the heart of all the things that I do lies potential. The fact that I truly believe that in the world, if people were able to show up with their full potential, I think we would live in a different environment, in a different context. The planet would be completely different. Why I'm saying is that because I think everyone comes with that inner beauty, and then for one reason or another, that inner beauty is toned down, is covered, is masked, and more often than not, you'll find this in the workplace. And so my role is to do a little bit of unmasking, and it could be an individual, and I do a lot of mentoring, and that's sort of the book that maybe we're going to talk about a little bit later. Sort of really, how do we help people to unmask their potential, to really lean into their potential? So I do that. I facilitate for leaders and leadership teams programs that allow them to really step into their full leadership potential. And I facilitate for businesses so that they can truly step into their business potential. At the end of the day, it's all the same, but applied in a different way. So that's what I do.
So it seems like the red thread that runs through all of these is, you've said the word potential so much. So your experience in working in fast-paced, high-tech companies, and now you work with a lot of startups, so you're in that arena. When you say potential, what is it that you perceive? What are you seeing on a daily basis?
What I see is that I think we came here to have this human experience to grow, right? Sort of there is a growth path that exists for everyone. And it also exists for abstract entities such as businesses. So there is a reason d'être why they exist in the first place. I mean, one example could be Unilever. You would think that Unilever exists because of shareholder desire. No, actually, when Unilever was established, Unilever was there to increase the hygiene in north of England for people. And that raison d'être is so much in the heart of that company that is trying to express it from time to time again when they really rekindle themselves with their original possibility or that original reason why they were born in the first place. So the same applies to individuals. So we inherently sort of when you line up your life and there are some milestones in your life that you key moments in your life, more often than not, when you look back to each of these moments in your life, each of these milestones, you'll find what you call the red thread, right? You find the reason, what you want to solve, what you want to grow into, what value you want to create. And somehow that value creation potential is what I try to uncover with people, what that value creation potential could be for them, and then how they can step into fully that value creation potential.
You and I, Zsuzsanna, we've had several discussions about where we see the potential for real change taking place, and we both agree that it must take place in the private sector, in the business sector, and it starts with leadership. Can you maybe share with us a bit of your experience about how you see different paradigms in different leadership styles based on working in the tech sector and then working with some of the startups that you're working with?
I think today's leadership model is extremely aligned to the success model that we live by. And as long as the success model is the following, let's do something, let's do more of it, so that we can become number one, a global leader, a global team, the global leader in certain areas, in industries, right? That is a very, very exclusive path. It really excludes the number twos and the threes and the 100s, right? And it's really a very exclusive path. So today, the leadership is really aligned to this model, which is measured by certain very strong KPIs, financial KPIs more often than not, right? So as the leaders are measured how fast, how far they can take their companies to be in that exclusive club that they want to become, right? So as long as this success model exists, it's going to continue to exist because it's a very exclusive, very scarcity-based model. It doesn't really allow for large part of the population to become, because once you become number one, you cannot become, another company cannot become number one, right? It's a very, very exclusive path. And then by exclusivity, I mean that it occludes a lot of other people, right? It's an inclusive way of living and producing and changing. So businesses are all about change. And then this change is not driven by the success model that you already can consider yourself successful if you become number one or number two or a world leader in certain industries or in certain sectors, right? And we're striving for that. And then all of our decisions that we take as leaders are in line with that definition of success. That's what I see in different formats. I mean, there are better formats of this, and then we try to say we do it by being a little bit more human-centric, or there are very toxic version of it where you really drive with a lot of autocracy, right? You drive by fear, even more fear. So there are many, many aspects of this, but at the end of the day, it all is connected to the success model that you're driving.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we kind of need to change what our definition of success is, because as long as it remains the same, then we will still be acting exactly the same way as we always have been, which has been driving for profits, driving for success, and in a very exclusive way, right? Mutually excluding people who might bring something different to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I get it. So when you, in your experience, when you see people in the old paradigm, which still exists, the old school style, which you and I talk about all the time, what do you observe about the negotiation style of the old paradigm versus the emotionally intelligent style of negotiating that you and I talk about regularly?
So one is defined by fear and scarcity. The other one is defined by abundance. Because when you are in the old success model, it's either you win or the other person wins, because that's the definition of become the winner. Can you become the winner of that negotiation or not? Right. So the new model, which is based on abundance, it says that, okay, there is a word for both of us. What is the impact that we collectively want to create, what is the value that we collectively want to bring to the world, in which you and I both have a place. So it's a very different mindset that you go into a negotiation when you are in an emotional intelligent negotiation, which is not based on fear that I'm not going to be good enough, I'm going to lose, I'm not going to be secure. These are these all fear-based drivers, right? The emotional intelligent negotiation, in my view, is all about abundance. What can we create? What's the creative possibility that we both have in this negotiation?
Fantastic. I like this. And so what about your style and how it's evolved from being in the tech world to now being in the more coaching, mentoring world? How would you describe your style?
I think my style in business was very much driven by fear. Because what if I don't get the budget?
Right.
What if I lose my people? What if my job is going to disappear, right? So again, as long as you're driven by fear that there is not going to be enough for me, for my team, for what we're here to create, your driver is really making sure that if I get this budget, then I can succeed. If I don't, I'm not going to be able to succeed because there is not enough for everyone. I'm not enough if I'm not going to drive this negotiation to that success.
Right. So you're saying that you link you wrap your identity around the success of or the outcome of the negotiation. And if your identity is linked to the outcome, then you absolutely want to win. Otherwise, by default, if you lose, that's a reflection of yourself.
Totally.
It's really good insight. So, I mean, how does it work if in the industry you were in before, and you were working on, you needed budgets and you needed to keep your people? How would the style of emotional intelligent negotiation, how would that work fitted into that paradigm?
I think because there is another part. I mean, there are many layers of negotiation, right? I mean, I would say that getting a budget and then existence for your team, it's like, it's physical security at the lowest level of the Maslow pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And there are negotiations when you negotiate for possibilities that, okay, now that your basic food and security is taken care of,
right.
Then, for example, with suppliers, I would never, ever negotiate with fear. I would negotiate with the mindset of possibility. What do we here to create together? Because my basic needs were taken care of. So I would say that I used different levers of negotiation already back in my time at the corporate. But it's for sure that some part of the negotiation styles that I had was absolutely driven by fear, others driven by the possibility that, okay, what can we really create together? What can I create with my team? What can I create with these partners? What can we create with our customers, right? I think there were different styles already back then. So it works. I mean, emotional intelligence negotiations, in my view, work also in a corporate environment, even in a classic corporate environment, as long as it's not about your condition to exist.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a misnomer that people think emotional intelligent negotiation means being softy and touchy, feely. And when you and I talk about emotionally intelligent negotiation, it's being aware that you are negotiating from fear. And so what are you going to do about that now that you realize that you're negotiating from fear? Have you noticed that your style has changed, or are you just now using different parts of your personality when it comes to the way you negotiate?
I think once you are able to see the word of emotional intelligence negotiations, and then the capacity you develop this capacity of being aware, you cannot unsee this. You pass a bridge, and that's it. There is no unseeing of that.
Yeah.
I think you step into that word where you trust. To some extent, you trust that negotiation will create possibilities for both of us.
Yeah.
So, and when fear comes up, you are aware of it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
deal with it. And I think,
Yeah.
as you said, I mean, it's part of the negotiation that even when negative feelings come up or fear comes up, then the first step of negotiation is to check in with that feeling and ask yourself, where does it come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that I understand where it comes from, what do I do with it? And you make a conscious choice. You can still make that choice that I'm going to fiercely negotiate my way out of this situation. And sometimes maybe you've got to do this. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in those situations, at least now. But you can always make a choice. And you'll make a choice, and you need to deal with that choice post that negotiation.
And so how many times a day would you say you negotiate, Zsuzsanna?
Oh, my God. I mean, you negotiate for everything. I mean, first of all, with my son, it's a 24/7, right? You negotiate because there is always something. We negotiate about our time, our involvement, the choices that we make for certain programs, right? And in my professional life, I would say that, I mean, I meet people a lot. So every time there are two people involved in a conversation, it's a kind of negotiation. We negotiate for the possibility we want to create together. We negotiate how much time we can spend together, right? I mean, I would not like to say that negotiation is only about business, one, that negotiation is only about when you are in a project and money is involved, right? I mean, I don't think that this is the strictest. So I don't take negotiation in its strictest definition that, okay, we really need to. I think every crucial conversation where you have some sort of stake which is important to you, whatever is important to you, is a negotiation.
You know, I wish more people would understand that, or take that on as a definition of negotiation, because you've said it, right? The classical style of negotiation people assume is two people arguing or going backwards and forwards about money or about terms of a deal. But recognizing that, as you just said, that you're always negotiating. And when you look at it through that lens, then it opens up many more possibilities, and it gives you also the influence and the interest to go and study and increase your skill sets in negotiation. So what about, I know you and we were involved in writing a book. And when you talk about negotiation, there were 4 men writing this book, and there was 1 woman, which was you. Tell me about how you felt you had to negotiate through the 3 years. Well, first of all, tell us about the book. Tell us about the book, and then tell us about your journey and what you learned about negotiating through that period.
The book is a journey itself. It's a journey towards finding your relationship to work that could bring your fulfillment and happiness. So more often than not, we connotate work in a negative way. We say that this is only about what we do from 8 to 6 o'clock, but it's actually not true. So we spend 90,000 hours in our life working in one way or another. It does matter what your relationship to that time is, right? So it does how you spend that time. Are you spending that time in misery, or are you spending that time in a way that fulfills you, at least to some extent, at least to some parts of that 90,000 hour period? And so the book is about that. It's a very fascinating topic, and then all of us in that group were extremely passionate about this in our own different ways, right? So I think what made these negotiations very simple is the mutual respect that we carried for each other. We were not arguing against each other. I think we were arguing the best possible outcome that is going to be created as a result of the writing together. And then sometimes our definitions of what that possible best outcome is was a bit fluffy. It was not very clear. So I think that's where most of the negotiations happen, because we didn't have a joint definition of the success. What does it mean when we complete chapter 2, which is all about connectedness and how you connect to the world? Well, what is that good outcome of that chapter? When are we going to be mutually happy about that chapter? And I think some of the work that we've done, we were actually going back quite often to that, okay, what's that mutual success definition?
Yeah.
And chapter 2 is going to be complete. And I think that really helped the negotiation. At the same time, I think it's not about necessarily man for man against a woman. It's about will and openness to other ideas, right? So, it could be that, it could have been another woman who would have a very, very different definition of what we want to create. And it would have been just as hard for me to negotiate with that woman if I was on a different spectrum of that definition, right?
Yeah.
So, I would not say that it's because I'm a woman and you were guys around me that made it difficult. I think the different levels of will and openness and listening is what made it difficult.
Yeah, that's really key. And I think I love what you said as well, that when friction was at its height, we just recommitted to what was the outcome we were looking for, right? So each chapter, and I remember you doing that several times, taking a break and then just asking that question. So what's the objective of this chapter? And I think that was a question that really helped focus us. That's great. So with the book, in a sentence, what would you say? What one problem are you trying to solve with this book? First, what's the name of the book? You didn't give us the name.
True. Yeah. So the book is called Enter Your Flow.
Okay. And the big problem that the book aims to solve, in one sentence.
It's how to find fulfillment and happiness in your work life.
Super. Well, Zsuzsanna, we've come to the end of our time together, just on the podcast. You and I will meet again anyway, as we do on a regular basis. But would you just tell our listeners, how can they find you, and what are you up to in the next few months? Big projects, anything like that?
Sure. So as long as they can figure out how to write my name, that's the first test.
Well, your name will be in the podcast notes, and I make sure I'll spell it right, so that's no problem.
Yes. Then they can mostly find me on LinkedIn, although I'm not too active on social media. I do share from time to time, and I do produce some posts from time to time, but more often not, then I'm in smaller circles, talking to people like yourself, Tony, or talking to other groups of people, facilitating programs for leadership teams or coaches, creating change in companies, how they can create a better, more human-centric way of leading, despite of the fact that some of the success factors are still about to change. So that's my occupation right now.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are listening, if you can, please reach out to Zsuzsanna, connect with her on LinkedIn. She's a very passionate human being with a great soul and a lot to share. Zsuzsanna Ferenczi, thank you for joining us at the table.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you all for being with us today, and a massive thank you to Zsuzsanna Ferenczi for imparting her valuable insights and rich experiences. Zsuzsanna's journey in navigating the tech sector and her wisdom in crafting relationships centered on creativity and mutual understanding has enriched us immensely. Thank you again, Zsuzsanna. To our listeners, if Zsuzsanna's insights have resonated with you, please make sure that you like this episode and subscribe to your usual channel for more enlightening conversations. Don't forget to share with your friends and family. Come back and see us again at Empathy at the Table.